Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. हरिनाम संकीर्तन की जय, हरे कृष्ण महामंत्र की जय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयामुदीरये। नष्टप्रायेषु भद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवतेरुत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी। कृष्णाय वासुदेवाय देवकी नंदनाय च नंदगोपाकुमाराय गोविंदाय नमो नमः। So today is the disappearance day of His Divine Grace Srila 𝐂𝐻𝐿𝐉 Babaji Maharaj. So just as there is book Bhagavatam, there is person Bhagavatam also. So the personality whose life is who lives Bhagavatam is person Bhagavatam. And in book Bhagavatam also there are so many Bhagavatas who are personalities. So it is in the year 1830, 192 years before that Srila 𝐂𝐻𝐿𝐉 Babaji Maharaj appeared on this planet. He is Manjari in spiritual world, and he appeared in this material world on this planet very nearby in East Bengal. Presently it is Bangladesh. So he has chosen one Vaishya family. So mystically, we see that Lord Krishna has chosen this Vaishya family. I mean, all the Vrajavasis, they've chosen that particular families. So, and all the Acharyas also, I mean, here we can see 𝐂𝐻𝐌𝐌𝐔𝐍 Babaji Maharaj and Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur and also Srila Prabhupada, they all have chosen. So we can see one of the Abheda aspect. So I'll just read out from the text. So I was reading from the book which is there in this folder of biographies of previous acharyas and bhaktas. So Babaji Maharaj by Karnamrit Das. I'm correct. Karnamrit Das. It's not printed properly. So Srila 𝐂𝐻𝐌𝐌𝐔𝐍 Babaji Maharaj appeared in 1830, that is 192 years before. And I was hearing from Param Pujya Gopal Krishna Goswami Maharaj that he chants 128 rounds every day, 2 lakh names every day. So it is such a challenge to chant 16 rounds, and here we can see 128 rounds. So he appeared in the district of Faridapur, adjacent to the place called Thepa Khola, in the village of 𝐉𝐎𝐻𝐼𝐍 in East Bengal, that is Bangladesh. He appeared in that village, which is situated on the bank of Padma River, as the son of Vaishya, that mercantile. So after the demise of his wife, Srila 𝐂𝐻𝐌𝐿𝐉 Babaji Maharaj left his business and went to Vrindavan. There he approached Srila Bhagavad Das Babaji, one of the foremost disciples of Srila Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj, and accepted from him the traditional Paramahamsa Vaishnava Babaji dress. After this, he became completely renounced and sojourned under trees in various parts of the 168-mile Brajamandala, under the trees. He continuously acted thus for a period of approximately 30 years under the trees. During this time, he would sometimes travel to the holy places of pilgrimage in northern and western India, as well as Gaur-Mandal, that is in the circle of North specifically. He associated with Srila Swarup Das Babaji Maharaj in Jagannath Puri, whose ecstatic activities were recounted by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur in his autobiography. He also associated with Sri Bhagwan Das Babaji in Kalna. He went to Kulia, the holy site of Srila Jagannath Das Babaji's bhajana, and associated with Srila Chaitanya Das Babaji. All of these Babajis were pure and exalted devotees. Srila 𝐂𝐻𝐿 Das Babaji became very famous among the great devotees of Vrindavan and was awarded the appropriate title of Bhajananandi. Even though he received such honor, he never endeavored for even a modicum of material sense gratification and totally disapproved of the secret material desires of pseudo-renunciates. He was entirely removed from such inclinations and would perform his pure, unalloyed devotional pastimes alone in a profound devotional mode. In the year 1897, during the month of Falgun, when he was in his 60s, Falgun Mas is the month when Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared. So at the time when Yogpit, birth site of Lord Sri Chaitanya, was revealed by the exertions of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Srila Gaur Kishore Prabhu, it is written here, Srila Gaur Kishore Prabhu proceeded to Navadvip Dham from Vrindavan under the instruction of Srila Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj. A very important line, under the instruction of Srila Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj. From this time until his disappearance, Srila Gaur Kishore Das Babaji remained in Sri Navadvip Dham, living in different villages and realizing their non-difference from the holy places of Vrindavan. And what prasad Srila Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj used to take is, when he is in Vrindavan, it is the mud of Radhakund, and when he was in Navadvip, mud of Mother Ganges. So that was the prasad, which, and sometimes he used to do Madhukari in his ecstasy of remembering Vrindavan. He would sometimes offer those foodstuffs to the Supreme Personality of Godhead by the simple expedient of holding them in his hand. In order to cook, he would collect dry wood from the paths and he would wash earthen pots discarded by the villagers along this roadside near the Ganges river on the occasion of eclipses. So due to the effect of eclipse, such pots were considered impure and unusable. So he used to take that. And in order to clothe himself, he would go to the shore of the Ganges and collect and wash discarded clothes that had been used to cover corpses at the burning ghat, that is, dead bodies. Thus, he always remained independent of the support of others, simply by utilizing items of no value to anyone else. In such a manner, he obtained the practical necessities of life. So in the year 1897, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur constructed his place of bhajana on the bank of Saraswati river at Godruma. So one of the speciality of Godruma Dvip is it represents Kirtan. Like the Navadvipas represent the different aspects of Navavida Bhakti, Sravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam. So Godruma Dvip represents Kirtan aspect of Navavida Bhakti. That ashram, which was called Swananda Sukhada Kunja and consisted of a moderate two-story house, Several small outbuildings and a walled compound was a gathering place for great souls. Previously, it had been the site of Lord Nityananda's Namahatta, the place from whence Lord Nityananda inaugurated his preaching exploits in Bengal under the order of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Here, the Thakura recited and explained the Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and other topics regarding the conclusions of devotional service. And Srila Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj would come and hear those talks with great delight. So, Srila Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj was Manjari, who descended from spiritual world, as we already discussed. And Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur is another Manjari, Kamala Manjari, who descended from the spiritual world. The Thakura often cited the behavior of Srila Gaur Kishora to elucidate the meaning of the word Nirapeksha, indifference. He often discussed the unequaled renunciation, pure devotion and attachment to Krishna that Babaji Maharaj displayed. In the days of the Thakura's retirement, the two souls met and associated in great happiness. So for some time, Babaji Maharaj stayed in Surabhi Kunja and performed Hari Bhajan. His room, which adjoined the wall of the Kunja, had been preserved. Babaji Maharaj displayed fervent enthusiasm upon hearing the discourses of the Thakura. So, and what are the possessions of Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj? His only possessions were Tulasi beads he wore around his neck and the Tulasi Mala he kept in his hand for counting. And he also kept a few books such as Narottam Das Thakura's Prarthana and Prema Bhakti Chandrika. So this is one of the very important points. Even though it appeared that Gaur Kishore Das Babaji was not a learned Sanskrit scholar, still the purport and conclusions of all scriptures were luminous in his heart and character. So, one of the very important point, even though he was not a learned Sanskrit scholar, so all the purport and conclusions are so visibly so much visible in his personality. It was never possible for anyone to serve him, for he was never willing to accept any kind of service from any person. Whosoever witnessed his unearthly, genuine condition of renunciation was reminded of the pastimes of Srila Raghunath Das Goswami. All kinds of divine powers and opulences were always waiting at his command, ready to serve him. Jai Shri Shri Nitai Gauranga Bhagwan ki Jai, Jai Shri Shri Radha Damodar ki Jai, Jai Shri Shri Prahlad Narsimha Bhagwan ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Sometimes such powers would be manifest in the form of his appearing to be omniscient. He was always able to reveal the deceitful nature lying within the hearts of pretenders. So, because he was always in direct contact with Super Soul, he could. Although a person resided outside his immediate purview, Srila Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj could elaborately and scrutinizingly reveal the person's cheating nature because he was in direct contact with Super Soul. This ability, however, was not his principal virtue. He exhibited the highest standard of devotion to the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna. And because of his exemplary character, he was recognized as the personification of the deepest degree of separation from Lord Sri Krishna. This is what distinguished him from most other Vaishnavas and what spread the lustre of his lotus feet. So Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur has written, many young, clever, old, learned, foolish, proud and reasonable persons came into contact with Srila Gaur Kishora Prabhu, yet they could not realize his real identity. This is indeed the mystic opulence of the devotees of Lord Krishna. Many persons came to consult with Srila Gaur Kishora Prabhu about their insignificant desires. They would always get suggestions, but those suggestions were usually the cause of their disappointment. Innumerable persons accepted the Babaji dress and acted as devotees of the Lord, but actually they were impostors, far away from being real sadhus. Srila Gaur Kishora never accepted such a false way of life. His sincerity was apparent in itself. His loving attitude was such that even when he obtained a very opulent offering, his renunciation predominated. And one more important aspect. So, Srila Gaur Kishore Das Babaji never displayed any distaste for those persons who were inimical to him. He also never manifested any special affection for those very dear to him. He would often express himself saying, in this material world, I am all alone in my service to Lord Krishna. Everyone is worshipable by me. Another noteworthy transcendental topic is that many materialistic, foolish persons masquerading as devotees and imitating pure devotion would come and surround him. They would consider that they were the dear objects of his affection, while they engaged their minds in so many worldly sense objects. Srila Gaur Kishora Prabhu would never display any intention of driving them away and also no symptoms of a compromising attitude. So, one of the Achintya aspect. So when there is a chapter of when Srila Gaur Kishora Das Babaji Maharaj was in Swananda Sugata Kunja. So in 1898, Srila Gaur Kishora Das Babaji Maharaj, the embodiment of the highest boon in the succession of the Rupanuga Sampradaya, arrived singing in a plaintive voice at the newly constructed Swananda Kunja. This transcendental crown jewel of the renounced order was wearing a cap made of tiger skin and was carrying a basket containing various items employed by him in his devotional service. After his arrival, he offered Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati 4 or 5 pieces of rope upon which to chant rounds of Harinama. A tilaka stamp with the initials of Hare Krishna. Initials, that is Ha and KR. And a tiger skin cap and other paraphernalia for worship of the Lord. Babaji Maharaj had previously received the basket and cap from his spiritual master, Srila Bhagavad Das Babaji. That same year, in the month of Magha, Babaji Maharaj initiated Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. So many people were gurus. Those times they are very enthusiastic to give initiation to Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur because of his exalted position, because of his very influential position, and he was famous as astrologer, already famous as astrologer, and a lot of other aspect influentially, which were influential. So many gurus were very enthusiastic to initiate Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur because they will get a lot of name. And Srila Gaur-Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj was, when he was being approached by Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur upon the instruction of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur that he should take initiation Diksha from Srila Gaur-Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj. So then Gaur-Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj was not at all interested. In fact, he just doesn't want to give initiation. And he rejected by saying that I'll check with Lord Chaitanya and then I'll initiate you next time when you come. And then I'll tell you. So then next time when Srila Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Thakur came, so then he said, I forgot to ask. And he rejected again. So like that, many times, 16, 17 times, he was being rejected. And finally, by the arrangement of Supreme Lord, so while Gaur-Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj was walking by on the bank of Ganges, so then Srila Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Thakur, he caught Srila Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Thakur about to jump into Ganges and end up his life. So he stopped him, and when he checked and asked for explanation, then he said, because you are not giving me Diksha, so there is no use of this life. So I'll better drown myself. So so then like seeing the genuine aspect of Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, finally Gaur-Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj has given one and only one initiation to Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. So this great Vaishnava, so this in Swananda Sugata Kunja. So the great Vaishnava often came to Swananda Kunja to hear Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur's explanation of the Srimad Bhagavatam. He would usually arrive around 3 o'clock in the afternoon and leave around 5 o'clock. On several occasions, he spent the night in a corner of Swananda Kunja, in a small hut with a tin roof. Sometimes he would stay in Prabjumna Kunja, and then again he would fast and under no circumstances accept prasad. In this way, he would either fast, accept prasad, or cook for himself. Sometimes he would behave as if afflicted by the disease called Shiro Roga, insanity, and by blindness. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur arranged a balanced diet for him, but to his dismay, Babaji Maharaj continued to follow his program of unsurpassable renunciation, disregarding the aforementioned diet. He eventually lost his sight almost fully in both eyes. In 1908, Srila Gaur-Kishora, it is written here, thoroughly lost his physical vision. In the following year, he stopped traveling and resided principally in Navadvipa at Pradyumna Kunja, and sometimes stayed at Godruma with the Thakura. So there is one of the yeah. So there is a chapter, the new Babaji. A neophyte devotee who had taken the dress of a Babaji often came to converse with Babaji Maharaj. On one such occasion, he decided to take up a residence in the holy Dham. He approached a certain queen who was living in Kulia and who owned land thereabouts in order to purchase 3/4 of an acre of land from her. Upon hearing this news, Babaji Maharaj commented, "The supreme abode of the Lord is transcendental. How is it possible that this queen has become a landowner in Dhama? How is it that she is entitled to sell that new Baba a portion of the land of the Dhama? All the jewels found within the universe are not valuable enough to purchase even one speck of dust in the Dhama. Therefore, how can any landowner amass enough wealth to become the owner of a plot of the transcendental abode of Sri Navadvip Dhama? Has this new Baba, for the exchange of the practice of devotional service, become entitled to a portion of land in Navadvip Dhama? Anyone with such materially tinged intelligence is very offensive and far away from actual residence within the Dhama. Those persons whose attitude is thus tainted by materialistic intelligence, who think that the Dham is part of the material universe, are considered by the devotees of the Supreme Lord to be sahajiyas or cheap impostors. We see in the present day scenario also how most of the holy places related to Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu have been occupied by these sahajiyas. So cheap impostors, they are now we can see the different levels of in one of the lecture, Prabhu Radhanath Swami Maharaj mentions that the Putana represents false guru, and Putana was in the guise of devotee and was actually wanting to kill the baby Krishna. So in a very similar way, the Sahajiyas who are in the guise of devotees have the poison of the gross sensual mentality and the subtle sensual mentality. That is, gross sensual mentality, the gross sex, and also the eating so many different items, and the subtle is the possession of the properties. So, and there is the passion and ignorance, the poison of passion and ignorance. Passion is wanting to possess grossly or in a subtle way, and ignorance is being offensive towards the great souls, being offensive and blasphemous towards great souls. So this is actually the mentality of the sagyas or the cheap imposters. They have this poison. So when someone, Maharaj says that when someone drinks, someone who has this baby-like Krishna consciousness drinks this milk, which has this content of poison, of gross and subtle exploitative mentality, then one's Krishna consciousness dies. So once a resident of Bangladesh who was a very wealthy landlord, scholar and Brahmana, and reputed to be a great devotee of the Lord, came with a friend to see Srila Babaji Maharaj. The landowner appeared to be so deeply absorbed in devotional ecstasy that his friend had to support him as he walked, lest he fall down due to excessive trembling of the body. So when the pair arrived before Babaji Maharaj, two other persons in the assembly, recognizing the famous landlord, immediately received him as an advanced devotee of the Lord. They carefully offered their obeisances to him and arranged a sitting place. At that time, Srila Gaur Das Babaji Maharaj, in his pastimes of blindness, inquired, "Who has come?" The friend of the landowner introduced his companion by glowingly describing his erudition and devotion and his being disinterested in material sense gratification, despite possessing unlimited wealth. He then described how only a fortnight earlier a thief had come and stolen 45,000 rupees from the landlord's house. Despite suffering such a setback, the landowner, knowing devotion to be much more significant, had come to obtain Srila Babaji Maharaj's transcendental darshana. The friend added, "I am his friend. He had left all material sense gratification and keeps only my association. You will be able to realize his greatness by conversing with him. He once asked me a question about a confidential exchange between Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Srila Ramananda Rai, found in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. I told him that only Gaur Kishore Das Babaji could properly answer his question and certainly no one else. We have already been to see many learned persons in this area, and yet we cannot come to an agreement about the meaning of this conversation. We think that only you are able to explain it properly." After the introduction was complete, Srila Babaji Maharaj replied, "I will tell you a process by which you can understand the conclusion of this conversation. But before trying to understand these confidential topics between Lord Chaitanya and Ramananda Rai, you should renounce the association of this rascal impostor, the landowner, and take shelter of a pure devotee of the Lord. You should hear the Chaitanya Charitamrita 100 times in the association of authentic devotees of the Lord. In this way, being absorbed in devotional ecstasy, you will be able to realize the purport of these conversations. At the present moment, all the devotees here want to perform congregational chanting of the holy name of the Lord. We don't have time to discuss any other topics." Having thus spoken, Srila Babaji Maharaj very loudly requested that everyone perform Harinam Sankirtan. Everyone then began to congregationally chant the Lord's holy name. After hearing the statement of Babaji Maharaj, the proud landlord and his friend immediately left that place. Later that evening, when almost everyone had left, some members of the assembly commented to Babaji Maharaj that very learned landowner was absorbed in devotional ecstasy. We could not see any manifestation of material consciousness in him. He was devoid of worldly consciousness. So another person sitting nearby who had always heard that Srila Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj was very straightforward with everyone, inquired. That person was so immersed in various loving devotional ecstasies that he could not even walk by his own efforts. How is it that you can say he was not on the highest platform of bhakti? Srila Babaji Maharaj replied saying, after speaking with him for a few moments, I could understand that he had no good intentions in his performance of devotional service. One cannot measure a person's devotion by the approval of the general mass. If a person is not serious in his devotional practice, then even if he exhibits the symptoms of renunciation, non-attachment and various ecstasies, still he should not be considered to have real renunciation or detachment. As soon as a difficult test comes, his false renunciation will cease. Detachment seeks out those who are actually fixed in their intention to perform devotional service. When performing practical devotional service, we should never exhibit our devotional ecstasies. One should perform devotional service in such a way that his deep detachment to the Lord increases within his heart. Even if one displays hundreds and hundreds of exhibitions of external attachment, he will not be blessed by the Lord if he does not develop an internal loving attachment to him. So I'll repeat. Even if one displays hundreds and hundreds of exhibitions of external attachment, he will not be blessed by the Lord if he does not develop an internal loving attachment to him. If one genuinely possesses a deep loving attitude, then Krishna himself will approach and claim such an advanced devotee. Whoever is not enticed by the fragrance of unflinching devotional service and whose heart is filled with material desires will wear different types of external bodily dress. Krishna is proportionately aloof or available according to the degree of one's surrender. If one is deeply immersed in devotional attachment to Lord Hari, then even while suffering distressing diseases or other material miseries, he will still remain absorbed in transcendental loving service to the Lord. If you can fast and chant Hare Krishna both day and night, and when you can always cry out with desire for the service of Vrishabhanu's Radharani without revealing it to others, this is a very, very important point. Without revealing it to others, then Sri Krishna, who is very dear to Srimati Radharani, will call you to take his shelter. So, this is another very important point. Without revealing it to others, these are very important point. So, I'll just conclude with the disappearance pastime of Srila 𝐂𝐻𝐌𝐌𝐔𝐍 Babaji Maharaj. So, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he disappeared in 23rd June 1914. And in 1915, 16th November, Srila 𝐂𝐻𝐌𝐶 Babaji Maharaj disappeared from this plane. So, several heads of temples had been awaiting his departure in hope of situating his samadhi in their individual matas to attract pilgrims and thereby increase their own prestige and income. Thus, the competition generated by his passing was intense and nasty. A young man named Umapati described the scene. This Umapati was later initiated by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur as Kunja Bihari. So, after Babaji Maharaja's departure, there were many opinions and disturbances over who would establish his samadhi. Hiralal Goswami and few others sent Sri Padmanabh Brahmachari alias Sri Krishna Chaitanya Das to Mayapur to fetch Srila Prabhupada and told me to go with him. As we were crossing the river by ferry boat, we saw Prabhupada coming barefooted and wearing a warm green chadar. With him was Sri Paramananda Brahmachari. This Srila Prabhupada was Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. It was Chatur Masya and Prabhupada's hair and beard were long. Seeing him, we prostrated in respect and apprised him in detail of the situation. After crossing the river, Prabhupada arrived at the Rani Dharmashala, where Babaji Maharaj used to stay. The Mahantas of the Akhdas in Navadvip were arguing among themselves about taking Babaji Maharaj's spiritually blissful body for inaugurating his Samadhi. Because the shrine of such a Siddha Mahatma could be used to raise money, Srila Prabhupada balked their illegitimate attempts. Apprehending a breach of peace, the Navadvip police inspector arrived. After much Hulla Balu, it is written here, Hulla Balu, Babaji remonstrated. Siddhanta Saraswati is not a renunciant and therefore not eligible to establish a Samadhi for a renunciant. Prabhupada thunderously retorted, I am the only disciple of Paramahamsa Babaji Maharaj. Even though I am not officially a renunciant, I am a celibate brahmachari. And by the grace of Babaji Maharaj, I am not furtively addicted to abominable habits or involved in fornication as are certain simian people. If anyone here is a renunciant of truly stainless character, we have no objection to his establishing Babaji Maharaj's Samadhi. He who within the last 1 year or 6 months, 1 month or at within the last 3 days has not had any illicit contact with a woman will be able to touch this spiritually blissful body. If anybody else touches it, he will be completely ruined. The police inspector asked Prabhupada how evidence of this could be ascertained, to which Prabhupada replied that he would accept their word. Everyone present was astonished to see those dressed as Babajis turn their backs one by one and quietly disappear. Some 2 or 3 months before his departure, during apparent sickness, Srila Gaurkishore Das Babaji had called Srila Siddhanta Saraswati from Mayapur and instructed that his Samadhi should be established either in Mayapur or Godruma. But if neither of these alternatives were possible, then his body should be, out of humility, Babaji Maharaj says, his body should be dragged by municipal sweepers through the streets of Kulia and finally thrown in the Ganga. But due to pressure from others, Sri Siddhanta Saraswati was now unable to take the transcendental form of his Guru Maharaj to Mayapur. Nor could he accede to those persons reiterating Babaji Maharaj's words, that his form be towed in the streets. In response to their demand, Sri Siddhanta Saraswati stated, my Sri Gurudeva, whom Krishna Chandra himself feels privileged to carry on his head and shoulders, spoke such humble words to destroy the arrogance of non-devotees. Even though we are fools, inexperienced and offenders, we shall not be averse to comprehending his actual intent. How greatly was Sri Gaura Sundara embellished by dancing while holding on his lap the spiritually blissful form of Thakur Haridas after his passing. Following in Sriman Mahaprabhu's footsteps, we shall carry the transcendental form of Babaji Maharaj on our heads. The next day, with his own hands, Sri Siddhanta Saraswati dug out and shaped the Samadhi on an alluvial bank of Ganga and Kulya in the vicinity where Babaji Maharaj had performed much bhajana. The site was owned by the brothers Ananta and Vanamali Poddar. This is another incident here. Prosperous businessmen who had been assisting Srila Saraswati Thakur for some years and were accepted within his circle. Claiming to have donated that property and given up all rights to it, they personally labored and spent money both for establishing a plinth dharit and later for daily services conducted there under Sri Siddhanta Saraswati's direction, and for the large annual festival celebrating Srila Babaji Maharaj's Tirobhava. Yet, after a few years, Ananta and Varmali outlook changed and they attempted to claim that site in the transcendental Dhama as family property. Ignoring the repeated protest of Sri Siddhanta Saraswati and his followers and sympathizers, the brothers eventually forbade them access to the Samadhi. As a result of these heinous offences, Ananta and Varmali soon lost their considerable pelf and underwent acute domestic problems, later losing both the Samadhi and the land on which it was situated, and being sent to jail for 6 months. Upon Babaji Maharaj's disappearance, Sri Siddhanta Saraswati inwardly bemoaned, "Now who will chastise me to make me understand the truth as it is?" Having seen many disturbances arise in the Vaishnava community following the Tirobhava of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur just 16 months before, feeling disappointment and hopelessness and keenly suffering the absence of his two muses, Sri Siddhanta Saraswati resolved to keep himself and desist from speaking Harikatha to others. So, and of course, after this, there is a divine drink where Panchatattva and so many acharyas of Guru Parampara, including Srila Gaurkishore Das Babaji Maharaj, told Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, "Saraswati, why are you worrying? Begin the task of establishing Shuddha Bhakti. Distribute Gauravani universally. Expand service to Gauranama, Gauradhama and Gaurakama with unbreached enthusiasm. Broadcast Bhakti Siddhanta." Srila Gaurkishore Das Babaji Maharaj Tirobhava Mahamotsav ki jai. Srila Gaurkishore Das Babaji Maharaj ki jai. Hare Krishna.